Hey everybody, I'm David Bloom at NextTMT. Welcome to our latest edition of our midweek project done with our friends at Media Play News. I'm here with my co-founder, Daniel Frankel, talking all things media, technology, and telecom. I am live, such as it is, from across the street from the Convention Center at Vancouver for the Web Summit Vancouver, where I moderated a panel yesterday on featuring some of the biggest executives in the so-called creative technology space, people behind K-pop Demon Hunters and Into the Spider-Verse and more cool animated and visual effects driven films and TV shows. Dan is still back in Southern California, soaking up the rays and staying warm, talking about Upfronts. Apparently, now, outcomes matter more than impressions. This does not sound like the Hollywood I know, I must say. And he's projecting how much longer EchoStar has before it hits terminal velocity as it continues to see its user base decline, swirling downward in the toilet, to use his hand metaphor. So, Dan, let's get started with the upfronts because those are a big thing in another faraway place called New York. Anything that came out, I mean, it's funny that everybody's insisting, even in TV, that we need to be able to link the money we're spending, that hundreds of millions and billions we're spending on advertising, to actual sales.
Yeah, the era of the soft edge, lower resolution brand awareness pitch is over. For decades, it was the discussion, the currency was impressions. And the upfronts are, to the uninitiated, or the big dog and pony shows traditionally presented to advertisers in New York this time every year by the major media companies. And they've typically been glitzy affairs where prestige matters. The best, most glamorous
prestige and parties. Let's just hasten to add. Yeah.
So the internet has been slowly transmogrifying all of media, and it has been working on the television business for years. And now it has come for the way it sells itself. And it was really delivered in very apparent terms this week. Performances from Jimmy Kimmel.
He's been doing it for 15 years now. He's been sort of emceeing the Disney ABC upfronts forever. Right?
They were there. Talent was there. And shows were presented from Netflix and YouTube is on stage right now, I believe, as we speak. The linear companies or traditional companies, NBC Universal, Fox, Warner Brothers Discovery, Disney, they went earlier. But the through line was this replacement of traditional impression-based advertising to sophisticated, agentic AI-driven technology that lets advertisers see the acronym you just gave me.
Addressable TAM, total addressable market. How big is the market of people you can talk to, basically?
How much did you pay versus what you got in sales? That direct line, in the words of Moneyball, getting that number down to 1. A world dominated by Google search, where that became the dominant way to advertise, that kind of very dashboard-driven methodology. It's Reach TV. And WBD, NBCU, and Fox all presented various agentic systems to provide that. And that was part of the presentations.
And it's going to be really fascinating to me to see how those agentic systems are able to reliably attribute and connect outcomes to, I just did a big pickup truck ad for Ford, or I just did a beer ad for Anheuser-Busch, and out of that, they went off and bought beer. I mean, those attribution things are really hard to do. Amazon is perfectly suited to do this stuff. Netflix could be, and certainly YouTube TV could be, but they don't have the fulfillment layer that says, okay, I saw the ad, I clicked through to the thing, and I actually bought it, and it got delivered, and it was because I saw that ad while watching NFL Thursday Night, for instance. So how they do that for the traditional media feels a little bit like you've glommed on this whole new universe of stuff onto a still pretty traditional medium. And I'll be interested to see how successful they are in really being able to sell that to anybody who's like holding them to account.
Yeah. Do you want to know TCL is being sued for privacy invasion, new class action today?
For at the glass, a measurement of who's actually watching what they're doing. Yeah. Interesting.
I'm sure it involves credit card transactions and other things.
Right. That was Vizio's big play too. You know, they had an opt-in panel of 20 million owners of Vizio, now owned by Walmart, TV sets. and they knew what was actually playing on their sets and took all that stuff, had a separate unit to track it all and help illustrate it. But even knowing that this was on and people were watching in this house, as opposed to an estimate of a number of houses that Nielsen was doing traditionally, still doesn't get to the attribution. They watched it, that ad was seen. Did they then go out and buy in Stepford wife-like fashion? Go and buy Comet as opposed to Ajax because they saw the Comet ad that week, right? I mean, how you make that attribution unless you're actually doing the follow through to the sale, I think is going to be really fascinating to see. Some of what you're talking about, that lawsuit feels like they're just hunting some class action money making opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, data is being gathered everywhere, and
yeah,
to signal it on one.
Yeah,
but it's a different era. I mean, this is sort of coinciding with something we talked about in our issue on Monday. Nielsen is ever scrutinized, but more so it seems like these days it's trying to change the way it does business from analog panels to data collection via the kind of next generation mechanisms, smart TV, et cetera, that we talked about. And it's not going so well. So all these folks.
Right. The impression is it's not going well on impressions or outcomes.
There's lots of advertising being peddled in the marketplace right now, and everybody making their own deals and coming up with their own machines that show off the ability to really demonstrate ROI. So we'll see where this goes, but a new era at the Upfronts.
It is a new era. It's a fascinating time. Here in Vancouver, the Web Summit is a big, sprawling gathering. It's, as you would expect, heavily Canadian focused, but like I met a couple that does brand marketing and strategy who lives less than a mile from me in Santa Monica. We already were connections on LinkedIn along with thousands of other people. But they were talking along with another person that they knew who's based up here about, how fast companies are expecting them to come up with brand plans and marketing plans for them in this AI era, to use AI to help drive that speed. But, doing it at a time when, if you don't, at least in the United States, if you don't have human creation behind the thing, behind a new brand, you can't copyright, right? And some of these companies are saying, oh, I don't care about that right now. I need to be up and out and get to market first before everybody else. And they're like, okay, so maybe what we do is the quick and dirty thing that hasn't been vetted by the law, by the legal guys, and hasn't got the trademark in place. And we go back and do all the stuff we need to do to make it trademarkable. I mean, these are creating IP that you can't make money from. You can't copyright it, at least in the United States. And that's really fascinating. And what's going on in the European Union is even more pointed in terms of labeling that this is AI created, et cetera, or you risk really massive fines, like 15% of your annual run rate of revenue or $15 million. I mean, like crazy amounts of money.
That is a lot of fightage for sure.
Yeah.
It's a big parking ticket.
It's a big parking ticket. Yeah. And they don't even have good parking spaces over there. So, it's really interesting to see companies try to figure that out. The panel that I did featured the head of Sony Imageworks operation up here, and the SVP of tech and operations for Disney Animation, and the woman who runs Blue Ant Studios. And all three of those are serious companies in the animation and visual effects area, which has become a major industry cluster up here in Vancouver after really starting obviously down in Los Angeles, and it's now a global
we talked about it. Started with Mulder and Scully.
It started with Mulder and Scully back in the day. There's one of the people I talk with, mother-in-law was the casting person who casted Fox Mulder, David Duchovny. The person I was talking to at lunch was like, tell me more about David Duchovny. He's like, well, he's a pretty interesting guy. He's a very thoughtful guy. He's a little chippy, but he's a very thoughtful guy, very smart. So, but that's where it started. That was where Runaway Production started out of here. And now we have, these folks were talking about, with support from the government here, talking about more than 100 companies in visual effects and visual effects and animation who are up here. The Sony Imageworks operation, accordions, as all these companies do, between 700 and 1,400 employees. And they did K-pop Demon Hunters. Now they're obviously working on part 2. Blue Ant Studios is busy working on the Spider-Verse stuff, the animated Spider-Man stuff. They did the Into the Spider-Verse movie.
And they're not driven up there by the sun. I can tell you that right
They
now.
are not driven by the sun, no. And then the other ones, I mean, they're working on Frozen 3 right now. Disney Animation's operation up there, which has like 400 employees, is working on Frozen 3. So these are not just little projects. These are major IP projects for Hollywood, and they have significant presence up here in Vancouver. It's interesting to me to contrast the number of organizations tied to the Canadian government and also to the British government, because I was at the British Consul General's home last night talking with their London and Partners operation as they're trying to connect folks in England with businesses here and help them get into England, help people in England get into these local markets. They have a big presence in LA as well. They're very involved in ways that I don't see, and I'm sure we have it, the U.S. government and the local governments down to the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation. It does not feel like you see these companies investing normally into companies in Hollywood, helping startups do interesting things, give them seed funding to get them going, tying in more directly with the education system nearby to make sure you get the right skills or the right reskilling classes for people who are losing their jobs or in danger of losing their jobs. And to see the difference it's probably something about they have a little bit more cohesive political culture here, even between the conservatives and the liberals, that we don't really see in our country these days.
Yeah, I bet that's true.
Just a bit. So it's a really interesting contrast. You know, they built this cluster and now they're questioning, they did not want to talk about AI at all. Didn't want that word mentioned at all. And so the conversation was about how you use these tools to continue to drive human creativity. Fine. But you have to mention some of the changes. So I said, well, let's just talk about the macro and how fast the macro environment is changing and what that means for you and how that affects your ability to build the next generation of creative talent. You know, The Atlantic had a piece last week saying that this industry cluster known as Hollywood, not just the physical space, but that broader sensibility and concentration of talent and skills and companies and distribution and money is dying. And I don't think you can stick a fork in it just yet. But, the fact that they're writing that, a major, really international, very thoughtful publication is writing that says something about what's happening here. And I don't feel like it gets enough attention. Oh, we doubled our tax incentive program at the state level. Yeah, but it's still too expensive to make a movie there. Yeah, but you've got all these rules.
For a long time. I mean,
it has. And they still haven't reacted very well or adequately enough. So, seeing it in close comparison with the original runaway production location and the stuff that they do to support the industry up there is fascinating for me as a contrast. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it's going to take a lot more than tax incentives at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What are some of those things?
Well, I was interested just seeing, for instance, how there are programs that are doing seed investments, seed rounds, Series A, Series B, in various verticals in various industries, not just entertainment, but also how they are very closely working down to the high school level to get people engaged in the industry, to help give them opportunities, to help drive some of what's possible.
Federal money being used to seed media operations at this point?
No. And politically, it is a non-starter, and that is the challenge. But you sit there and you go, okay, this is one of the few American exports that's clean, that has soft power, that circles the globe in terms of its interests, and we're going to just let it die. So I find that really interesting.
Before the let it die are things that our current leadership just doesn't get at all. The value of soft power to start off with.
It is true he does not get soft power. It's mostly just hit him over the head with an aircraft carrier. But that being said, Trump has at least voiced concern about preserving jobs in Hollywood. He has not delivered with any kind of substantive program. And, you can't just write an executive order saying don't close any more stuff, and go ahead, David Ellison and buy up Warner Bros. And lay off another God knows how many thousands of employees and consolidate that stuff. I mean, it's like you can say, I don't want to lose jobs. He should not want jobs to get lost. That's not a vote for him. Even in a town that's notoriously liberal, that's not a vote for him, helping preside over the decline of one of our most valuable in a strategic way industries. But again,
That's horrendous.
seeing Vancouver in action is like, that's different.
I don't know. Did you see that release from Disney? Ted Sarandos sort of flexing international power in terms of its contribution to various production markets and its reach and soft power.
I did not see that.
Headlined by 250 million, I guess, or 350 million, I guess now. Customers.
Not billion,
So,
Dr. Evil.
no, I got it right in this case.
How many zeros? That's good. That's good. Happy to see it. Netflix has got 42, I think, production centers around the world. And, what as they've said in earnings calls, sometimes what we create out of one of these does well locally, and sometimes they do really well regionally, and sometimes they really bust out, like K-pop Demon Hunters. It's interesting. Sony Imageworks is happy to be making Demon Hunters 2, as their executive said. They didn't really know what we had, and Netflix really didn't know what they had. When it started out, it was not. It was kind of going along, and these super fans found it and started watching it over and over again, started talking to people, and it started going up, and the song started getting hot, and then it went shoom, and it became the most watched thing on Netflix. But it could not have done a theatrical traditional release, even Sony says. And so you need something like what Netflix can do with a project, which is eternally fascinating to me.
With all respect to Disney, maybe the most global entertainment company of all time. And it's caught up in this sort of anti-globalist movement that is near and dear at home. And they're trying to fly above that weather. And it's interesting.
Yeah. And one of the ways you do that is de-emphasizing your film and TV stuff for the moment and doubling down on the local theme park, in Florida, for goodness sake, or the cruise ships. Right here in Vancouver, the cruise ships come in across the street from where I am, here at the wonderful Fairmont Pacific Rim, which is not
tough market for the cruise industry.
It's they do that stuff up. They go up the coast and the islands that head up past Juneau and Sitka and all that along the Canadian coast, and stunning Vancouver Island and all that, and stunning stuff. But they stop here and they put in here right across the street. And it's interesting to see Disney Wonder and Holland America ships, and they're in for a day, and then they blat their horns and they pull off and go off to parts elsewhere.
There are biologically safer ways to drink for a week in a confined space and stare at the ocean.
You sound like you may have some experience with this.
Never been on a cruise, and I don't plan to be on one.
Never got your hantavirus, huh? I mean, it's like, come on, live large. Your Andes strain of hantavirus.
Yeah, but sounds terrible.
I have always said, and my spouse agrees with me, that the idea of a river cruise sounds pretty good. Because if something goes horribly wrong, you can just jump in the water and swim to shore. When you're on an ocean cruise, you're not doing that. So it's just a personal thing. But they're good bargains for a certain set of folks.
Yeah, I think if you have younger kids, I contemplated it one time out of desperation, but thought better of it. And,
there's something to be said for bringing your hotel room along with you as you go from port of call to port of call. And,
I actually watched that Netflix documentary about the failed cruise, the ill-fated cruise that got stuck, I think, coming from Central America up the coast back to the United States. And
this wasn't a remake of Gilligan's Island you're talking about.
No, when I talk about biological...
3-hour cruise. 3-hour cruise.
Like a 3-week cruise stuck in a very uninhabitable boat on the deck.
Yeah, if it goes wrong, I mean, these systems can go really wrong. That being said, lots of people do it. It's a big swing for Disney. They're getting new cruise ships delivered in the next 2-3 years. Each year, I think they're getting another ship. The Disney Wonder was here at the dock, I guess yesterday, with Donald Duck and it was Huey or Louie, or I don't know who the third guy is, Huey. I'll call him Huey, on the back in a full 3D expression. It was really kind of cool. Much more exciting than Holland America's out of Rotterdam. Very old school kind of thing. These are gigantic ships, though. I mean, you can put thousands of people on them.
The Costa Concordia, remember that?
Yeah.
That was the coast of France?
I think it was south of France. I think that's right, but I could be confused. That was one that had problems. The Lusitania, but that was World War I. Not so great. Every once in a while, things go really wrong with the cruise ship. That being said, it's a business. It's a nice business.
No, but the case of that one, it was ruined.
It ran aground.
People died because of one man's hubris. So I guess that's not the
Right.
first time that's ever happened.
That is not the first time that's ever happened. Let's just say you could probably have AI do a search for you. The number of cases where a lot of people died because of one man's hubris.
It's a
And
theme.
then it sits there and thinks and then prints out a very long list of options. So yes, it's a theme. The Exxon Valdez, one drunk, navigator, so et cetera, et cetera. Didn't kill anybody, but sure made a mess of much of Alaska, which is now much closer to me than it normally is.
Captain Hazelwood, yeah, I did a big paper on him in college that was it coincided. That was rough. The guy, what kind of shipping company won't let you dash out and have a couple pitchers of beer and leave the ship to a junior sailor? I mean, it seems really unreasonable of Exxon to put him in that situation.
I'm betting he wasn't having pitchers of beer. It might have been something a little stouter than beer, or stout for that matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, you mentioned that EchoStar is on terminal decline, and it's like, I think you said it's going to be gone in 600 days, which is an interesting
Well,
countdown.
our pay TV business.
We should get some like countdown widget, days till EchoStar dies, just to keep track.
Well, there's not that many big pay TV companies left. We talked
No.
a few weeks ago, I guess I'm saying Verizon has stopped putting out quarterly numbers for Theos. It's not dead, but I'm not trying to recruit new users. They have about 20.
But they did buy Frontier, which is doing the video. So they're not doing Fios, but they bought Frontier, and Frontier is all about high speed connectivity to the home and fiber.
This is over. They're partnering with folks like Netflix to deliver bundles to their users, wireless services and various connectivity fiber too. But selling fiber to the home and wireless is what they want to do. And they've got a new CEO and they're trying to refine the business. In the case of Dish, there's 5 incumbent big TV operators left if you count YouTube TV. And I think Dish goes away. They lost another 366,000 pay TV customers across satellite and Sling TV.
Out of how many? 100,000, 300,000+ out of what, 2 million? What do they have?
Well, Sling, its height, I think, got to about 2.6 million, and it's well below 2 million right now. And I don't
and 300,000 ends up being about 12%, 14%. I mean, that adds up quick if you're losing that many.
But a decade ago, both DirecTV had over 20 million, I should say, and Dish had well over 15. I don't have a million. I don't have a specific number, but it was far more robust than it is today. It's well under 8 million total for Dish. And that business was supposed to underwrite the transformation of the company into a wireless company. If you may recall, the federal government, when it was concerned about consumer well-being back in those days, this was 6 or 7.
When was that? God, I'm old, man. Who remembers that?
There was concern at the time that T-Mobile's $23 billion purchase of Sprint, taking the number of major wireless companies from 4 to 3, would create a competition issue. And Dish was brought in. They said, hey, Charlie Ergen, or chairman, the FCC will let you buy a bunch of spectrum if you pledge to build out this new 5G Open RAN network, to which Dish EchoStar agreed, Dish being the subsidiary of EchoStar at the time. Now they trade as the same. Things got a little tough. The TV business decayed faster.
His timing was pretty terrible. Let's just stipulate that Charlie said he was going to do this while his main business was falling apart, and 2, while the new business wasn't really growing, it was pretty much, flat. The growth is really if you can take some share away from somebody else, right? I mean, that's really been the growth in the U.S. market.
Well,
there isn't any.
Like I said, the pandemic didn't help them. That was right after they agreed to, swim across that channel. That happened, and then they made very conservative estimates on how fast the pay TV business, sort of cash cow that would underwrite it, would dissolve. It happened a lot faster than expected. So the sum total was, in 2024, they find themselves reaching about 75% of the U.S. with the network. They've got 30 plus vendors involved. They've spent $7.7 billion, and they're over $20 billion in debt. And folks, the equity out are saying they're about to go bankrupt, and the way forward looks really murky. The build out slows down, but they've met all their timeline estimates. Conversely, Trump returns.
Other than the whole part about being a functioning business,
they have
minor detail. It's sort of like billions and millions. It's like, it's just a little detail. It's zeros, but they add up to something. It's like,
I don't leave I don't leave games with 20-point leads in the NBA because you never know what the outcome will be. Who knows?
Even with 2 minutes left, anything can happen.
It could have still worked for Charlie and the gang. They could have got it built before bankruptcy court, and it might have worked out. Doubtful,
Maybe.
but who knows?
Yeah.
Under Donald Trump and Brendan Carr's FCC, the decision was made that Starlink, the internet broadband, the satellite broadband company that was started by SpaceX, Elon Musk company, that was the one they wanted to bet on. They wanted it to have the spectrum, which is not easy to come by. They wanted EchoStar spectrum, so they could gun to EchoStar's head and said, hey, you're not using this, and if you can't get this set up by X date, we're going to take it from you, so you should sell it. Get out of debt.
The flip side is they gave a failing company a chunk of SpaceX, basically. So it has like a $10 billion stake in SpaceX, which is about to go public at something like $1 trillion valuation. So it's about the only thing left that EchoStar has value, or SATs, SAT, which is EchoStar. It's about the only thing of value they got left.
Yeah,
really.
It's called an asset-light way forward. I think that's the way the company, they have various terminology to talk about their change of direction, a forced pivot they always use in public-facing events.
Right.
And they talk about their asset-light future. So,
but some of this is worth noting. Some of this feels a little bit like what happened with Yahoo. And I don't know if you recall this. Yahoo was this, pioneering Internet 1.0 brand that happened to have a big early stake in Alibaba in China, which became
emptiest suits
really big
that company
and really valuable, even as Yahoo was becoming much less so. And eventually, the Yahoo gets bought, or the assets that Yahoo had get bought by Verizon during one of its weird different jaunts, I think under Hans Westberg. But they spun off the stake that they had in Alibaba to try and do with it. But it was like the thing that made the company valuable really was the Alibaba stake. For a long time, that was the thing that was really floating the value of the stock. And now Yahoo lives on. The Alibaba stake is stuck in some weird little escrow thing, much to my spouse's chagrin. But also, Yahoo just is doing a revamp of their Yahoo Finance site, which apparently still has a pretty good sized following. Yahoo Sports still has a pretty good sized following.
Well, I'll continue on this EchoStar frame. One could argue that the FCC intervention was justified. Company was heavily indebted. It wasn't going to get done with the objective of creating America's fourth wireless network.
It's a little bit like heavy-handed, government. And I'm talking about how government intervention in Canada might be helpful. This is an example of the government doing it in the U.S.
But it comes across really unseemly because of Elon Musk's involvement with Doge and his close ties with the administration. It looks like the FCC is trying to give him an upper hand. It has that appearance. So it looks like they're sort of manhandling Dish, EchoStar. I mean, you and I both got those emails last year from those weird far-right political action committee or advocacy committees talking about how woke alert EchoStar had crossed the line with their DEI policies that were 7 years old in some cases. They were off the books. They couldn't even find them on the internet because they were the first to be dissolved when Trump took office. So there was this clear kind of smear campaign, it seemed like, to sort of make them a palatable fall guy in this thing and take their spectrum. Often has gone, AT&T bought $23 billion worth of spectrum. Amazon bought $17 billion. It's $40 billion that will be used to pay off all that debt and turn EchoStar in a new direction, which is probably a leaser of Amazon's low Earth orbit internet service. It'll provide the terrestrial backbone for that. And we'll also...
It sounds like it's turning into the cricket of satellite TV, right?
Boost Mobile is their future, basically. That's how
Boost Mobile and Cricket, right? So the little low-end resellers. So that's interesting.
The interesting thing in this process, Charlie Ergen did a very Charlie Ergen thing. He said, I'm not going to pay all the tower construction people, all these vendors that helped me build this network out. I owe them a lot of money, and I don't want to pay it because of force majeure, which is a term that describes...
It's a legal provision in every major legal contract that allows for, shall we say, dramatic cancellations.
In this case, acts of our president, who thinks
who has put out memes suggesting he is God. or at least very tight with Jeebus, you know?
So it was interesting. The closure of these spectrum deals requires Dish to put $2.4 billion in an escrow account. If it loses all these litigations with various vendors, then they can't say, well, we used the money to pay off our debts. We don't have it. It's in the escrow account. So that felt a little bit like Brendan and the gang could let them off a little easier than they did. It seems like they got kind of beaten to a pulp in this whole process. But
yeah, it's tough sometimes. I have friends who've worked for Ergen and the Denver area. And let's just say it was not the most generous of employers. Ergen's a noted cheapskate and doesn't necessarily make a great workplace, even back when things were going pretty well. He's a pretty brilliant operator in terms of entrepreneurial daring do, but maybe not a place you wanted to work at even back when it was working. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next, what Charlie Ergen's next chapter is, and whatever EchoStar is in this asset light future.
It's interesting to watch on social media. Every couple of weeks, Brendan Carr posts a picture of him climbing these high towers, broadcast and mobile.
Right.
And the tower folks are understandably pleased with him because he created this escrow account or forced it. And on LinkedIn, one of them posts, very well-liked message by his peers, a picture of Brendan Carr, his red, Make America Great hat again, climbing a tower, saying, "Thank you, Mr. Carr, for a very fair decision." And I wrote back, well, I'm going to speak for Mr. Ergen, define fair. I have attracted, one thing I do well is create dissension and enemies.
Yeah, and God bless you for that. I'm a little lower key, though no one would believe it. But you kind of walk around like young Ben Franklin saying, where is that lightning bolt? I want to just see how it's
I'll just carry this giant
this giant metal rod in the middle of the lightning storm, just to see, does electricity work? Is it related?
I'm trying, Dave, but every once in a while I'll see something.
You are trying. It's like that old joke. Jimmy goes to school and he comes back with his report card, and it's not a great report card, but the parents are very excited to see that at least it says trying. Then Jimmy comes back the next quarter and the report card still isn't any better, but it says really trying. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, he's just a pain in the ass.
One of these days, we won't do it on the pod. Vivian will tell her 4 nuns who go to heaven joke.
Okay. We won't do it on the pod. It's a little bit like the aristocrats. We're going to leave that joke alone for the moment, though I'm sure it's an expression of Vivian's inner soul as a comedian and stand-up and beloved producer.
Don't sell the 4 nuns short. It's a good joke.
I won't. But with that, we should wrap this puppy up. I am David Bloom, live from Vancouver and the Web Summit and all the really interesting people here. I do recommend this as a cool conference, a cool town, and a interesting contrast to our hometown down there in Los Angeles. Dan is back on the home front, holding things down. This is our midweek report in conjunction with our partners at Media Play News. Thank you kindly for your attention to our podcast. You can like, share, comment, subscribe at NextTMT, as in technology, media, and telecom, nexttmt.com, and get the newsletter in your mailbox. Get the podcast either in audio or video form from Spotify, Apple TV, and YouTube. And you can continue to sup on the greatness that we dish out every week. Thanks so much for everything. All free, can't beat the price, and it's actually worth far more than free.
One day when we're gone, you'll look back and say,
you'll wish, God, this was the golden era of Next TMT, and we missed it. So Don't do that. Anyway, with all that, I am David Bloom. Over and out.